Hello, I'm Tommy, your friendly neighborhood atheist, and this is No Old White Guys on secular TV. And I'm here with David Tamayo, who is going to be a speaker here at ApostiCon, which we are currently this weekend. And you're going to be talking about...
I don't know. My presentation is tomorrow, but I'm sure I'll think of some. No, I'm going to be talking about the journey that I've gone through in the last 5 years as president of Hispanic American Freethinkers, and sort of the good, the bad, and the ugly, and come out with maybe some do's and don'ts when it comes to dealing with secularizing the 56 million Hispanics that we have in this country.
That's good. Well, that draws me into the purpose of this show. As I've mentioned many times, growing up, most of people I thought of as being atheists were old white guys like Dawkins and Hitchens and even Dan Barker. And
I am old though.
So am I.
Two out of okay.
So I wanted to have more representation of other atheists, and it's being a growing number of other nationalities and other religions that are coming out as atheists. And I'm hoping to be able to give them a little bit more of a voice. So David, growing up, what was your religious upbringing?
Before I answer that, I just want to thank you for having me here, and I think it's a great thing that you're doing, not because you're trying to make somebody else lose rights or sort of go down so others can come up. I'm the firm believer that you can bring others up without having to bring others down. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Yeah. Like many Catholics, I was born atheist, and my family made me a Catholic for 43 years. So actually, it's been 9 years since I became an atheist. And since then, I was one of those angry atheists. Yeah. I was angry at myself mostly. Stupid. How could I believed all this stuff? And but then I said, we got to rechannel that kind of thing. And you know what? It's payback time. I'm going to try to secularize the entirety of the Hispanics of the United States. This is my home. This is where I grew up. So this is my task, and I'm happy doing it. So now, just to point out something, most people think that Hispanics are 80% Catholic, maybe, or
that is the perception.
Well, in the United States, it's actually only 52%.
Really?
Yes, a lot of them, it's no coincidence that we have a Latino Pope because there were bleeding members in Latin America and more so in the United States. So now I think this Pope has done a good job, and he's a great PR guy, you have to admit.
Talk to Joey Kirkman about that. He's got a book called PR Pope.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, and he says a lot of good things. Of course, the Vatican's always behind saying, well, let's interpret what he just said.
Yes.
Atheists are going to hell, not to heaven, like he said, and that kind of stuff. So overall, though, a lot of Hispanics, the problem is that a lot of them have changed they've left the Catholic Church, but some have become nuns. A good portion of them have become nuns. Yeah. They stopped going to church altogether. They still believe, but they just stopped going to church.
My wife is a good example of that.
But there are about 200,000 Hispanics that have converted to Islam in the United
Really?
States. Yeah, that's not a good thing.
I would have thought Christianity.
Well, a lot of them have become Pentecostals. The Mormon Church has most of the growth for the last 5 years from the Mormon Church is due to Hispanics. They do an amazing job of proselytizing in all the Latino neighborhoods. I've met with them many times, and these are Americans that speak Spanish fluently, never been outside the country, and they speak Spanish fluently. So, that's they're right now, it's a group that a lot of people see as primed to convert, and the way they convert it, all of the churches use more or less the same technique let's help them out, let's have they need babysitting, so they offer free babysitting. And you're needy, you're working 2 jobs, you need free babysitting, and here's this mosque that is offering that, or a Mormon church or something. Yeah. They offer free citizenship classes, free this, free that, and then people feel obligated, like, oh, they did this for me, they were so nice, they're so helpful. The least I can do is sit through one of their sermons or one of their stuff, and it sort of starts. I mean,
yes, that's how they get you in.
Unfortunately, that's how it works. So that's what we have to deal with nowadays.
That's a big surprise to me. I would never guess, but it makes perfect sense. And I live in Chicago area. There's a huge Muslim population there, and I can see.
Well, there in Chicago, so you have in New York City, there's a Latino mosque.
Yes.
Only
really?
in Spanish, yes. And in the parades, in the different parades, they come out, with doing part of the parade. In Chicago, they're trying to form a Latino mosque there also. They have one where they have Spanish services, but they're trying, and the same in Miami. They're trying to get one started there also. So part of this is that, and in fact, I have a good friend of mine right now, Manuel. He's Peruvian. For the last 15 years, he's been a Muslim. And we have, just last night, we're having conversations online. He refuses to come in on podcasts, or I do a TV show called Road to Reason that in the DC area that gets put out on Ustream also. Notice the plug. And
plug away.
I said, just come and we'll have a conversation, respectful. I'm so curious. And private, we have lots of talks, but nah.
Yeah, I found that with a lot of. I had another show that I was trying to do called The Theist View, trying to get people who believe just to basically say what they thought of atheism, and it was very difficult to get anyone to do it because I think they're deep down they're embarrassed by what they believe.
Yeah,
they know it's ridiculous.
And they can't defend it,
and they're fine with talking to you one-on-one, but they don't want to put it out there in the public sphere because it's very easy to say, do you realize what you just said is crazy?
Yeah.
They do, but they don't want anyone to know that.
And it's funny that it's usually somebody, the other religions are the crazy ones.
Yes.
And mine isn't, but when you start really digging in, and so one of the things that I ask Latinos a lot is, well, the soul. Everybody assumes we all have a soul. Okay, well, how do you know we have a soul? What evidence is there for a soul, especially a soul that survives death?
Yes.
Where is there a mind without a body?
Yes.
That kind of thing. And you start asking those questions. Very Socratically, just ask the questions, and you start seeing the discomfort. And now, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Let's talk about something else. But
always the fallback is, well, how do you know they don't, or how do you know there isn't?
I said, well, how do you know there are no fairies? You believe in fairies?
Exactly.
Why don't you believe in fairies?
Exactly.
Or the chupacabra, whatever. So that's so the idea, I think, is educating through questioning. I think it's one of the things that has worked well. And it's less threatening because if you're just asking questions, you're having a conversation. The problem is that when you do it that way, like on one-on-one, well, there are 56 million people here. If I live a million years per person, it's still not enough. So the idea is we have to come up, also continue to strive for better methods of communicating and sort of creating our own virus. We know that religion is a virus, social virus. It's to create one where people are proud to have it, and that's the virus of critical thinking. The virus of saying, I admire someone that knows how to think clearly more than someone that just believes in woo and magic and superstition. And because it's not just religion. We're not talking about just God and the atheism and that kind of thing. With the Latino community, you have the superstition. You have the botanicas, these places, the stores where they sell you all kinds of powders and weeds and all kinds of things. And not the good weeds you can smoke. No, these are things, magic stuff. And unfortunately, it seems to me, and what we've seen is that it's the most poor the people that can least afford it are the ones that go there and walk in with 2 bags full of crap.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of thing that I like to see eliminated, and more critical thinking. Now, lack of critical thinking gets you, as we were talking earlier, 20% of Latinos voting for Donald Trump.
Yes.
Or supporting Donald Trump.
Yeah, which I was shocked by that as well.
Crazy.
Yes.
And I've talked to at least one of them who supports it. He's, I'm a libertarian, this and that. And but it's lack of critical thinking.
Yeah.
And if you think that because those around you don't have critical thinking, say, who cares? As long as I have critical thinking, no. Their actions affect you in a big way.
Yes.
And with the elections coming up, no one can win the presidency of the United States without a Latino vote, as Mitt Romney found out the hard way. And so I'm sure Trump is not going to be president, guaranteed. But unless you get, 20% of the vote, and 30 and 40, where does it stop?
Yeah.
So that's why it's important if the people around you, not just you, but everyone has critical thinking. And minorities are, I forget what the year is, but very soon whites will be minorities, as together with everybody else. In other words, there's not going to be a majority group in the United States, and so it's a good thing to make sure that every group has those critical thinking skills, and that we encourage them.
I often make the point of saying, I'm not against religion, but what religion does is teaches people not to ask questions. It teaches people to accept whatever you're told. It's like, this is, the Bible. This is the Word of God, and just accept it. Don't question, just accept it. That's
And the more faith you have, the more patting in the back you get.
Yes.
They're like, oh, you have more faith than this. Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
You're not a doubting Thomas. Oh, this is good.
Exactly. If you don't question, you're doing a good job, and that's the road. That's the road to hell.
And that's why it's important to note that in talking to people, not just Latinos, but everyone in general, it's best to approach it not from the religious point of view, and say, hey, what religion are you? Oh, you're a Mormon. Oh, well, you're an idiot because of this or that or that. Or you're a Pentecostal, or this or that. And pick sort of the I can't say the word
Idiosyncratic?
Yeah, picking up the specifics of those religions. Peter BOGHOSSIAN, who wrote the book, Manual for Creating Atheists, very small book, highly recommended. His approach, and many other people have said the same thing, is forget the religion. Don't attack the religions. Attack faith.
Yes.
Because that's the key.
Yes.
Religion without faith is not much of a religion.
Yeah.
You end up with some sort of, Buddhism maybe, and even then you see some little, a few crazy things in some types of Buddhism. But the idea is that once you eliminate sort of the supernatural out of religion and the faith, believe without evidence and that kind of thing, or claim, or as Peter says, claiming things that you don't know.
Yes.
As a claim, then that the problem of religion goes away sort of on its own, and it works for other stuff, not just religion, but it works for the superstition. And the reason our group is called Hispanic American Freethinkers, we picked very selectively the word freethinker, is because we didn't want to talk just about the subset of atheism. But atheism is just a conclusion of free thought. Once you look at things from a free thought mentality, atheism becomes a conclusion, and so. But it takes care of all the other superstitious stuff, all the other stuff, and it allows for us to say, look, questioning things is good. Questioning is not a bad thing. So that's the problem that we often have. In a lot of religions, and a lot of is that if you question something, then anything then you are now you're being evil, you're hellbound, and it's funny. One of the there's this guy who wants to be this Latino guy in Puerto Rico who wants to be the William Lane Craig of the Hispanics.
Really?
He's smart. He's a nice guy. He's a good guy. And all of that. But the problem with smart people sometimes is that when they're entrenched in dogma, they use their brains to try to justify it. And William Lane Craig is a perfect example of that. He's a very bright guy, probably one of the best debaters there is, because he's able to take words and twist them one way or the other and that kind of stuff. Well, so he wants to be a Latino version of him. But recently, after studying the Bible a lot and talking to a lot of us and having a lot of things, he's a Pentecostal, and so he came to the conclusion that his church was very strict on women's dress. And he went to ask his preacher and question him on this, that women, if you read the Bible and other places, that actually women don't have to wear the long dresses, that they don't have to, that God is not really concerned about women's fashion. And he was kicked out with prejudice, and the preacher went to the entire congregation and said, I want you all to befriend him in Facebook. He is an apostate, and he is hellbound, and now you and I still look at him, and this guy is still like way to the right on the religious scale, way to the right, but even to the
from 1 inch over,
and now he's an apostate for that other group. So it goes to show you that it's all relative in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And a lot of people say, well, the Muslim religion is too virulent, but forgetting fairly often that the Christian religion was possibly worse.
Oh yes, much worse.
500 years ago.
Yes.
They just went through the Age of Enlightenment and that kind of stuff, and Islam hasn't yet.
Yes. I point that out all the time, that Christians criticize the Muslims. Oh, they're all terrorists. Like, did you look at your history? All those torture methods that you see in the Wax Museum? those were created by Christians. I mean, that's
and if you look at I highly recommend that, there are certain books you have to read. The Bible is one of them. You should read it top to bottom. It's a lot of suffering, but
it's hard to get through.
You'd be better for it. The other is the Quran.
Yeah.
Okay, you would probably notice that actually the Quran has less violence than the Bible. The Bible is actually a much more virulent, much more violent kind of book.
Yes.
But yet, most Christians today would argue the opposite, because when you go to church, rightly so, and that's good, they preach to cherry pick the good stuff, and they just present the good stuff, and people are saying you're a good Christian is a compliment instead of an insult. If you take it literally from you believe in all these things, it's more of an insult in my book, of course. But anyway, that's now that I've answered your first question.
Let's go back a few steps. Back to now you became an atheist fairly recently.
Old.
So
fairly old.
How did your family respond to you? I mean, I'm assuming that most of your family is still Catholic?
Yes, very Catholic, and they all now know that I'm an atheist, atheist agnostic, as Matt LaHunty would put it. And my family took it very well, actually. When I first told my siblings, my brother and sisters, and my sister, when I told her, she looked at me and says, "I suspected as much." And I said, "Why?" "Well, because of your stance on abortion." And I said, "But when I was a Catholic, I was pro-choice anyway." And she said, "Well, I didn't know that. I thought, so, part of the thing also is that I live in the Washington D.C. area, and they all live in New England. Yeah. So we only get to see each other for holidays, and we don't talk much about religion. But the one that took it the hardest so far has been my mom.
Yeah, that
but she
would have been my guess.
But she's never brought up the topic. So others have told me that they don't know. Yeah. I have my mom's cousin found out that I was an atheist, and she recently discovered Facebook. Well, you can imagine. I get 10,000 links for miracles and all kinds of things, and it's funny because she's in her 70s, and I will give her all the arguments for this thing, why she's wrong on something, and she will just kind of ignore it and then send me another link.
Yes.
And we'll keep doing that, and she will make comments like, I'm going to Apostacon, and she will comment something to the effect of, well, I wouldn't want to be with, all those atheists. And I said, well, that's good, because those atheists probably don't want to be in church with you either. So that's okay. It's okay to feel that way. And so, that's the idea, is that to try to create at least the conversation, because I think if you're having that conversation, it helps. But from my family, they've all been very, very good, I have to admit.
That's good to hear, because I know a lot of people who have been ostracized or just plain kicked out, or the family members won't speak to them.
So I think Latinos are a little bit different in that sense. The family unity tends to be much more important. Yeah. It's a survival skill. It's a way to survive here. I can't tell you the countless number of family members that at one point or another have lived with my parents because they didn't have a place or whatever, and my parents say, "Oh, you're our third cousin," but you find family somehow. You can stay with us for 3 weeks until you get back on your feet, that kind of stuff. So family plays a big role. And I think so, even though I may be the black sheep of the family, and they may all think that I'm going to hell, they also have a little bit of fun with it. So about a year and a half ago, my niece got married, and so we all went to church, and a Catholic church and everything. And their eyes were on me to see what I was going to do, say, or whatever. The only thing they told me is, please don't make a scene with the priest. And I said, this is not my day. Yeah. This is my niece's. I'm here for her. I'm not here for the priest, for atheism, for nothing. I'm here just for her. Yeah. So, of course, when they all kneel and get up, they're all looking at me to see what I'm doing. And I cheated a little bit. I took a camera, and I decided to become the photographer. And so while everybody's doing things, I'm just taking pictures like I wasn't there. Yeah. And sort of, it went well. Yeah. Put it that way.
Well, as I mentioned, my wife is Mexican, and I find...
Sorry for you.
Yeah. I find I get more acceptance from her family than in some ways, I do from my own family. Because they're like, yeah, you're whatever. And they tease me. And I go to church with them when there's ever a public thing. And you're like,
an event or something.
You're an atheist. Where my family says, well, aren't you afraid of getting struck by lightning or getting burned by the holy water?
because you don't believe in that.
Yeah, and it's like, really? And her family is like, oh, we're glad you came. You know?
Yeah. No, and I think that's the part of also the Latinos in the United States are also a little bit different than the Latinos in Latin America, in the sense that in here, when you are especially if you're an immigrant type, if you've been here for 3 or 4 generations, it's different. But I think if you're a more recent immigrant, or just a couple of generations, you become more accepting of adopting new ways and seeing, in Latin America, you don't see a lot of Hindus, and you don't see a lot of Muslims, you don't see a lot of these other religions. And so in here, you're much more exposed to seeing people from all over the world, and you become more accepting. Also, and less judgmental, or at least judge in private. Oh yeah, that Hindu is going to hell, but I'm still going to be nice to him, and he's going to be nice to me, and we'll all live together, kind of thing. So, in a way, and also my wife likes to say that Latinos are an equal opportunity. Can I swear in here? They're equal opportunity fucks. In other words, they'll marry anybody, anywhere, any place, And so Latinos tend to also intermix with everybody. And she knows this very well because for 25 years she was a marriage celebrant in Virginia. And so they saw her name, there was a Latino name, and so they would call her to have either bilingual or Spanish weddings. And she has seen Latinos marry Iranians, people from Bangladesh, people from all over the world, and sort of get along, get married, have kids, and live a normal life. So I think in a way that also helps to become more accepting, of other cultures and other religions or lack thereof, I suppose.
My niece, who's Catholic, married a guy who's Christian. He's also a Mexican, and I point these out to people that Christian and Catholic are not the same thing. They're kind of the same, but they're not.
So technically, they're both Christian, but the Christians will make a difference and say, the Catholics are not Christian. We're the Christian ones, and it's the true Scotsman fallacy that you have to. He's not a true Christian. We're the true Christians, and then of course somebody else would point to him and say they're not the true Christian. We're the true Christians, and at the end of the day, they're all believing in BS. So.
Yes. Well, what I find interesting about Christianity is you have the Protestants and the Lutherans and the Baptists and the Mormons.
The 40,000 different types.
And with the Catholics, you've got the Mexicans and the Polish and the Greeks and the Romans.
And but the Catholic Church had always taken Latin America for granted. But they've lost. So in Latin America, they went from about 69% about 10 years ago being Catholic, which is well, in the 70s was like 90s, and it's been declining. Now they're at 65 or so percent in Latin America, and it's because the Mormons and and internet and all these other religions have been creeping in. And I've always said, when I was a Catholic, I consider myself a good Catholic. I went to church every Sunday. I went holidays. I prayed a lot. I was there, but But most Catholics are bad Catholics. They don't know why they stand up, why they sit down. If you ask them, why can't the priest get married? They'll tell you, it's because he wants to be like Jesus. And you say, but priests got married for about 1,400 years before that rule came into place. Because, what it was is they got married, and they used to be aristocracy, were the only ones that could read and write and become priests and all of that and knew Latin. And so once they died, the money from the aristocracy went to the family. But if they were single, the money went to the church. And they said, there's an idea. We all want to be like Jesus. Yeah, that's it. And so the rest is history, as they say. But a lot of Catholics don't know that. No, they don't know a lot of the shocking history of the Catholic Church.
I mean, most Mexicans don't realize the only reason they're Catholic is because Spain conquered Mexico. And those who would not conform to be Catholic were killed. So basically, by a process of evolution.
But they considering they were killed for a good reason, so their soul could go to heaven. They baptized them and killed them, so they wouldn't have a chance to change their minds. Unfortunately, that's the kind of nasty things that when you believe in imaginary things, then you can justify anything. You can believe in anything. I
mean, it's true. I've had this conversation a few times where most blacks in America are Christian. They have no idea that they're Christian. Well, they're Christian because when the slave boats came to Africa, they baptized them, shoved them on the boat, and anyone who wouldn't go along with it was basically killed. So
during slavery, the only time that they really had off is when they would get them together and put a preach in front of them and,
Yeah.
and start telling them all the stories and getting them all indoctrinated. And this became sort of escape for them, mental escape,
Yes.
to be able to get some hope that there's okay, we're slaves here, but when we go to heaven, we're all going to be equal, or we're going to have a good life, or maybe the whites will be the slaves there, or who knows, But it's really crazy in a way. It's a way to make people submit.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's escapism. They figure the next life is going to be better.
Yeah.
So I don't have to worry about this life because the next one's going to be
Which is not a good thing, because then they don't try as hard,
Exactly.
Although oddly enough, when they've done studies on people that are about to die, the ones that the least want to die and that fight the most to the last, the bitter end, are the religious people.
I know.
Makes you wonder, do you really not really? I mean, you should be eager to check out and go to the next level and go to heaven.
Yeah.
But again,
they're afraid they may not have been the good Christians that they think they were, and are going to the other place.
Because that's part of the
really
doctrine, especially in the Catholic Church, is that guilt. You're not good enough. You're nasty. You're bad, and and sex is bad. You must have it to have kids only, and you should have as many as possible. Then you should repent after that.
Yes.
So because now your kid was born through sin.
Yes.
It's crazy.
It's
But one recommendation that I have for people in dealing with Latinos is engage them in that conversation. Say, well, when you go to heaven, I mean, you believe in heaven, yes. So good people go, yes. So tell me about heaven. I mean, you believe in it, and you're living your life to go to this place, and you do a lot of good deeds, trying to buy your ticket to go to heaven.
Yeah.
So, tell me about heaven. And they'll start telling you something like, everything's great, people are perfect, you have total happiness, and you're like, okay, so what would you do the first 100 million years, to keep, to stay fun, so you try all these things, out of 100 million years, and then what would you do the second 100 million years after that?
Yeah.
And or you can ask, well, let's say I should have a nose operation, but let's say I have a nose operation. Would I have my old nose or my new nose? Would I be my old self or my young self? Like, would I be in the prime, or would I be, if my leg got amputated, am I going to get my leg back? And they start telling you all this BS, and of course you throw in, and how do you know that?
Yes.
How do you know it's not the other way? And you start just asking the how do you knows. So part of, all of us, when we go to sleep and we can't sleep and worried about things, our mind starts churning. And that's when I think that seed people plant in, those questions start coming out, and doubts may start coming in, and thinking, well, maybe, because with me, that's how it was. I mean, I read it, A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking.
Yes.
And it was like the second time I was reading it. He's talking about how far this galaxies are, 13 billion light years away. And if you try to do the math, it's just like, you run out of paper.
Yes.
And then he was saying those worlds no longer exist. And my church taught me that everything God created was for us.
Yes.
And so, wait a minute, those worlds, we can see them as they were 13 billion years ago. They no longer exist. Even if we leave to go there right now, at the speed of light, we'll never make it there, because the universe is expanding and ever expanding, accelerated way. And so it sounded to me like God was going, nah, this is not for you. And then I'm thinking, okay, the church got that wrong.
Yes.
What else did they have wrong? And then the transubstantiation, I said it. That's the, where the host and the wine changes into the. And I said, then I always took it as symbolic.
Yes.
But the church says it's literal.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, that's bullshit, because it's always tasted like wine, and good wine, by the way. And it's always tasted pretty lousy, the cracker, the host. And so I'm saying, okay, so they got that wrong also. What else did they have wrong? And before it's a thread in a sweater. And before you know it, it's, then you're saying, okay, that's the wrong religion. Which one is it right? When you look at the others, they're worse. Yeah. And you're like, they're worse only because you didn't grow up in them, of course.
Yes.
And then that's when you start saying, wait a minute, what's the gig here? What's the business? It's the best business ever invented.
Well, for hundreds of years, God was a personal God. God was like, right there among people, pretty much. It was like heaven was right above you. So God was right there. And now that we've learned so much, God has been moved outside of space and time.
Yeah.
Because everything that was attributed to God has been found out to have natural causes, natural reasons, and they can no longer attribute those to God. Yeah. So now God is beyond space and time.
Well, you ask a Catholic, you ask a Catholic about Virgin Mary. because it's venerated, you know.
Yes.
And they say, oh yeah, she went to heaven with body and soul, you know, to heaven, like up to heaven. Is that past the satellites?
Yeah.
Is that past the moons? You know, where?
Yeah.
How far is heaven that way?
How far is up?
And how far is up? And which way is up depends on where the Earth was turning
Yes.
at that particular moment.
Yes.
Because, you know, it might be in all kinds of directions.
Yes.
And then you say, and show me in the Bible, where does it say this?
Yeah.
Because, you know, and they're like, oh no, Pope blah, blah, blah had a dream.
Yeah.
And that's God that told him that that was it. And therefore, it's dogma. And so what is dogma? Dogma is, I said it is, and therefore it is.
Yes.
And people believe it, and they go and give their donations every Sunday, and you know, I forget who asked this, but usually what I tell people when they'll bring out, well, you know, churches do so much good, is to say, well, you know, tell me what can you do with that church that you cannot do without a church?
Yes. And
because people are the ones doing this stuff.
They're taking in a lot of money, not paying any taxes. And the money that they're bringing in could literally feed all the hungry people and house all the homeless.
And not pay the airplanes for the big pastors. And
so why is the Vatican like the richest nation of the world when it's like basically a castle?
Yeah.
That, you know.
That is the ultimate government and church together.
Yes.
Talking about that, the Pope is going to be next week in Washington, D.C., and I've talked to a few atheist leaders about it. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Sadly, you know what the conclusion is? No one wants to do anything. Because
they want to go see him.
Well, they say this Pope is too popular and we're going to come out looking like dicks.
Yeah.
So we can, even if we point out that, you know, this good Pope still prohibits condoms in Africa, which is being ravaged by AIDS. It still treats women as third-class citizens within its own institution. It still has the most corrupt bank, the Vatican Bank in Europe.
Yes.
You know, none of these things have changed. It's just the packaging is better. And, you know, he will say one thing, and
they've got a good front man right now.
And
the Vatican doesn't even fully support it. They're like, well, that's what he said, but here's what he meant.
That's what he meant, exactly. So, you know, the Pope is not supposed to make any mistakes, right?
Yeah.
He's supposed to be, you know, he's God's vicar on earth. Infallible is the word, infallible. And yet, this Pope particularly, the Vatican has corrected him on a bunch of things. So, maybe the other Pope is still in charge. And this is, you know, he's not infallible yet because the other guy's still alive. Who knows?
Yes.
I don't know. The other guy was worse, of course, but, you know, covered a lot of pedophilia and all of that.
Was the Sarah Palin of the papacy.
Yes. Well, and even this Pope, though, I mean, the UN not long ago came out with a study on the pedophilia problem in the Catholic Church and had a set of recommendations that included that the Catholic Church get rid of all the pedophiles that they've identified.
Yes.
And this good Pope hasn't followed up any of them. Not one. He is, you know, he's fired a couple of popes that embarrassed the church when they came out and saying, hey, there was one in Germany that was making this $40 million home with gold faucets and all kinds of things. And that was sort of an embarrassment.
Yeah.
But that was why he got fired. It wasn't because of what he was doing. And so, although that claim different, because the actual other stuff that they get to find out, they don't follow through. So yeah, it's just a beautiful packaging that this Pope is in.
Yeah, they're very good at hiding their secrets. They've been doing it for a long time.
I don't know I'm telling you, if I didn't have some ethics and, you know, a little bit of a moral thread, I would open my own church, man. It's such it's such. The thing is, I don't have the stomach for it because I'd have to lie to people and I have to take advantage of the most vulnerable people, and so you know, I've told my wife, man, you know, we pay like in my house we pay like $20,000 a year in taxes, you know. Wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to? Because, you know, if I were a preacher or she was a preacher, we wouldn't have to pay those taxes. And it works, you know, for property and other stuff. So I don't know. I think there are a lot of people that have discovered that and fully take advantage of it.
Yes.
You know, and they know they're wrong. They know they're lying. They know they're doing all these things. But it's a good gig. It's a good business.
Well, you have all these prosperity churches that are. I mean, they're specifically prosperity. It's their prosperity.
Yes.
Send us your money,
the pastor's
and you know this.
It'll come back to you 20-fold.
Yeah.
You know, send us $200 and you'll get $2,000 guaranteed within 30 days.
Yeah. And people still, I mean, even with the internet, they
well,
still
of course,
buy into
if they don't get the $2,000 in 30 days, whose fault is it? them for not having enough faith.
Yes, exactly.
They had doubts and they didn't have enough faith. So you know what? Do it again.
Yeah.
But this time with more faith.
Yes.
And so that, it's always the thing. God gets all the credit, and if something goes wrong, then it's your fault for not having enough faith in God. So that's the sad part. That's the part that, the reasons that I'm doing this. What I do.
Well, speaking of things that you're doing, you've got the TV show that you're doing. But the big thing you're doing is you're vice president of the Reason Rally. Yes. And the Reason Rally is?
Well, so the Reason Rally is... this is the second one. The first Reason Rally was in 2012. It was to bring to Washington the largest number of nuns, the non-believers, the atheists, agnostics, people that didn't practice a religion, people that support reason, together in one place in Washington, D.C., to let the people that run this country to know that, hey, you have these people here. Now, in 2012, a little bit, maybe it was God, we had torrential rains during this bad weather during this thing, and yet we still gather about 25,000 people. So not too bad.
Yeah.
The goal for this time is to get 100,000 people there. And so you need to come to the Reason Rally. Planning now is going to be June 4th. It's going to be June 4th. Do a road trip if you're coming from across country. Make it fun. The activities are going to start the Wednesday before, culminating on that Saturday. And there are going to be lots of speakers from all over the world. There's going to be lots of events. We're going to have, for instance, on how to do podcasting, how to do TV shows, teaching you how to do TV shows, how you can get your own TV show in your town using public television, and the kinds of training, the kinds of things you want to do, the words to use, and so forth. There's going to be lots of parties, of course, lots of activities. And even for students, I hear a lot from students that say, look, hotels, we can't afford them. Even though, by the way, hotels that normally go for $240 a night, we brought them down to $130 a night, $120 a night. So, and they're all near metro stations. So we have lots of good deals in that sense. But even I hear from high school students, I hear from college students, and look, even that I can't afford. So I tell them, well, if you can't get 4 or 5 people to sleep in a room,
I was to say,
that comes out $20 or something. We're still trying to work out with some of the Universalist churches in the area to have, sometimes they have like a hall where they do their sermons or whatever, and have kids camp out in there. And so we're trying to work with the Secular Student Alliance in organizing that with a lot of the different groups. The idea is to make sure that anyone and everyone that wants to come into this is going to be there. It's going to be the most amazing reunion / party. It's going to be the Woodstock of atheism and the Woodstock of reason. Now, let me rephrase that. I want to make sure that this is not seen as an atheist meeting. Granted, 80-90% of the people there are going to be atheists. Yeah. But the idea is to try to bring in and attract also the nuns.
Yes.
These people that no longer have religion, they may still believe of something, that there's something deist or whatever, but the idea is to bring in and say, this is a place where you can talk about anything. No one's really going to judge you. And you should be that way. No need to judge people. And in fact, the reason we tend to attract a lot of what I call sometimes weird people to the secular movement is because people are free to be themselves.
Yes.
And I love that. It's something that I really like. And sometimes it takes, for new people, it takes a little bit used to. But the Reason Rally is being sponsored by about 13, 14 organizations that there are far too many for me to mention. And there's a lot of money. This is going to cost an amazing amount of money. There's going to be musical groups. There's going to be big screens because, for the crowd. Yes. We're going to have all kinds of things. It's in June to avoid the showers in April showers that we have. And we're going to have, you can imagine the security, the cost in doing that. The venue is the stairs where Martin Luther King gave his famous, I have a dream speech. Those stairs, that's where we're having this conference. Right next to a reflecting pool, between the reflecting pool and the Lincoln Memorial. One of the most beautiful spots in Washington, D.C. From the Lincoln Memorial, you can see the Washington Monument. You can see if you step a little bit to the side, you see the Washington Monument, you see the Capitol. Best view, one of the best views there. And of course, within walking distance from there, there's the Arlington Cemetery where you have the unknown soldier, you have all these things. So lots and lots of activities that if you really want to enjoy DC, of course, you got to be there at least a week before or more, because There are 20 museums. They're all free. Smithsonian museums, the most amazing museums on earth, and they're, I say free, but it's a Bernie free.
Yeah.
Taxpayers pays for these, so enjoy them, while you're there. But I highly recommend it. Guaranteed, your money back if you don't have a great time while there. It tends to attract also a lot of the quacks. The Westboro Baptist Church is there,
and they're very entertaining.
Yeah, they are, and they're not. They're not dangerous. They'll do this and that, but most of these people that look freakish, you can usually walk to them and talk to them, and they're not going to yell at you. They'll be willing to talk and try to convince you. So. Oh,
this is the week of my birthday, so I figure this is the birthday.
Your birthday present. Oh, excellent, man! You can't have a better birthday present than that. Definitely. So there's lots and lots of people working on this project. It's a massive project. The president is Sarah Moorhead. She is doing an amazing job. I'm in awe at how good she is at organizing things. She's just incredible. But there are, Richard Dawkins Foundation's behind this, Freedom from Religion Foundation, Ex-Muslims of America, Hispanic American Freethinkers, Free Thought Society. I don't want to name them. I'm sorry, I don't want to name them because I'm going to miss one.
I can listen.
But the website, reasonrally.org. All the information is there. Register. So people should go to the website, register there, and you will get updates. You will get, you can, see all the events that are going on in there. And there's a Twitter account also you can get. So, especially as it gets closer, it's going to become more, to find out what's going on. There are going to be some last minute things that are going to be added. And so thank you for bringing that up. As vice president, I should be the one plugging this thing without prompting.
Well, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, guaranteed. And by the way, come by so I'll plug my own. Yeah. Hispanic American Freethinkers will have a table there. Please come and say hello. Come and say you saw this show, and we'll give you a little present, something. Maybe a Bible sticker. By the way, those are always good to have handy. I carry a lot of those. Bumper sticker, something. Whatever.
Oh, another question I want to ask you is, obviously you're very outspoken. I'm fairly outspoken.
You can't shut me up, as you can see.
What would you tell people? How do you encourage other people to become more outspoken? Either those who are already out and very visible as atheists, or those who are finding themselves and wanting to express themselves, but haven't really figured out how to tell their friends.
So first I'll tell you why we should come out and why we should. Because if you look at the gay movement, you look at all the different movements we've had, whether it's race or whatever, the only time that something has been done is when people come out and you get people, your neighbor, your friend, someone that already likes you, to say, oh, you're one of them? But you're, and I've had, a couple of weeks ago, my wife and I are walking our dog, and my wife had a t-shirt that said atheist. One of our neighbors says, oh, you're an atheist, but you're such good people. Yeah. And my wife said, Carol, what you just said is insulting, right? And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, no, I didn't mean to. She didn't know what to say. And said, well, it's just that, you seem like it's such a good Christian. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you. I said, look, relax, okay, And so the idea is that, you make yourself known as the normal, it's normal to be this, and it's okay, and you're not eating babies or anything like that. So to answer your question is, you can do simple things. This little pen here, the little A pin is, for most people know that is an atheist pin. It's good because you can put it on, and your friends or people or somebody will ask you, what is that? So the thing is that if you don't want to answer because you're in a hurry, because you really don't want to have this conversation right now, whatever, or this is not the person to have the conversation with, maybe he's your boss, and then you can say, oh, this stands for awesome, or this stands for, angel, or whatever you want to come up with. But it serves as a token of conversation and sort of brings the topic without you bringing it up. It's like you walk in somebody and say, oh, cross, what does that mean? And, and have them be curious about it. So that way you don't come out like the person that just came out to proselytize. Yeah. And so that's one way. The other is to participate in activities, to join the meetups, to go and help out with stuff. Pennsylvania last week had a big conference there. Yes. And they did a gazillion meals for needy people. wow, that's the kind of thing, that's the kind of thing religion people do, but,
Yeah.
it works, and it's a good thing to do, and it's a good way to show, like, look, we just didn't come together to this conference to pat ourselves in the back.
Yeah.
We're actually going to do something about it. And so try to do something that is active, and just share. You don't have to sit down and have a philosophical discussion, but share. Don't hide the fact that you're an atheist, and you can hide it from some and not others. At work, some people, I slowly have been coming out to some people, and they, no problem. I've had a couple of people that come in and say, "Oh, really? Well, how could you deny that the Ten Commandments is a good thing?" And I said, let me count the ways.
Yeah.
And then we can have that conversation, and it's fun. You can. Then you didn't initiate it. They initiated. I had somebody else come into my office and saw that I had a Bible. She's like, "Oh, you have a Bible? Oh, well, I'm a Christian also, and Jesus be with you, and blah blah blah." And we started talking. After 5 minutes, she was looking at me like I had grown horns and a tail.
Yeah.
But we became actually friends
Yeah.
after that, and she realized that I'm human, and we're all good. So that's the way. That's my tactic. It seems to work well. It's not threatening. Worst thing you can do is approach somebody and corner them, and they don't want to have the conversation anymore. Reading body language is good. You want to be a friend, and you want to ask questions more than you want to tell people they're being stupid.
Yes.
Let them come to that conclusion on their own.
Yes, and it's pretty easy. I mean, I constantly have people tell me, there's only one God. There's only the one God. It's like, you do realize the first of the 10 Commandments is, "Thou shalt have no other God before me." Your God.
Why even
thinks there's
bring that
other
up?
gods.
Yeah. Why even bring that up? Why even bring it up if you're the only one?
Yeah.
It's like when I walk home and there's pizza for dinner. My wife doesn't say, "What would you like for dinner?" She'll say, "We're having pizza for dinner." It is what it is. So why we got to that? So anyway, you can. I had one say, "Well, you can't be against honor thy father and thy mother." I said, "I sure can." What? And I said, "Well, so let's say that the father is raping his 9-year-old daughter. She should be, honoring him." And, well, no, that's different. I said, not different. Did the Bible say? I mean, the Bible said honor father and mother. Period. Nothing more. No, didn't elaborate. I said, this is like for a kindergarten kid.
Yeah.
This is not for an adult. And so when you accept that as an adult, I mean, same thing with "thou shalt not kill." I meet people all the time and say, "You believe you should defend yourself? If someone's trying to kill you, can you kill back if someone's trying to kill you?" Yes. Well, you're killing, Oh, no, it's killing and murder.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. And what determines what? And what determines that? Because the Bible doesn't specify what it is. I mean, it promulgates genocide, so obviously that's not murder.
Yes.
So genocide is not murder then. I mean, what? So, and what's murder in one country is not murder in another country. Even within the states here, you have your stand your ground laws in Florida, and that doesn't work in Massachusetts. So that's the idea. So we have to, question everything. And I said, look, the thing is, if you question everything, it doesn't matter, because if it's true, then it welcomes questioning.
Yeah.
Anytime you want to, verify if something is true, even premises. I mean, most people don't know that the continental shift, in science, the continent shift, until the 1950s, every scientist in the world didn't know that happened and didn't believe it. But it was taken as the Earth is very still; it doesn't move. And you investigate it, you question it, and if it's true, then you got no problem.
Yeah, people are always claiming science, like, science, they don't know what they're talking about. They're always getting it wrong. It's like, well, that's the point of science. Science is trying to figure out what is correct. Science isn't not about not making mistakes.
Yeah.
Science is continually taking in new information and adapting that information to what's relevant.
It's a tool.
Where religion says, this is what it was 2,000 years ago, it's still that way, and there are no changes.
Well, religion starts with a conclusion,
Yes.
and then tries to fit everything into that conclusion.
Yes.
In science, it's not supposed to be that way. Granted, we have biases,
Yes.
and that's why we have double-blind tests and that kind of thing, because we know that we have biases, and we try to accommodate for that. By the way, did you bring your sunscreen? You see, the sun has been shifting I've been leaning forward and forward to get it.
It's slowly getting closer and closer.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you, on relevant to the same point, is the openly secular movement.
Yes.
What do you think of that?
Well, So
It's a little different than saying you're an atheist, but it's
yes, I think
related.
is related. I think it's a good thing for sure. I think it's a good thing because it brings up the conversation. Well, what is secular, and what does it mean to be openly secular? And I know some people have characterized as well. It's like not having balls. Come on, say who you are. Say you're an atheist. This and that, but baby steps. It's a way to gently start nudging into that direction. So people, I know. Let me give you an example. I have a friend who was Pentecostal for the longest time, all her life. About 2 years ago, maybe less, she became an atheist. She can't say, "I'm an atheist." She was indoctrinated so harshly that she had nightmares and all of that. She will say, "I'm not a believer." She will say, "I'm an A."
Yeah.
I'm one of those A's, but she can't say the word atheist, and she says she says the word. If she were to say, when she has tried at home alone to say I'm an atheist, her skin crawls, her hair bumps up. She has a visceral emotion to it. So saying I'm openly secular is in a way of saying, I am not a religious person. It's sort of the opposite of being a religious person, but it doesn't say much because for most people, secular means a separation of church and state. It doesn't necessarily mean, I know a lot of people say that I'm secular even though they believe in God. And that's because they're secular in their views. They're secular in separation of those two things, which is great. We want a lot of that. Americans for the Separation of Church and State is formed by a lot of religious groups.
Yes.
So that's how I see it. And we need everybody at the table. To me, we need the angry atheist. We need the gentle atheist. We need the atheist that is shy. We need the atheist that makes a scene. We need everybody in order for this movement. In order for us to, I need to move a little forward. In order to get everybody to accomplish what we want. What we want is total separation of church and state. We want a more secular country where laws and rules and things are made not on the emotion of religion, but on some logic and some reason. I understand if you have different political views and you say, look, I think we should be more conservative with the views, or we should be more liberal with this, or more paying for more social. Those are good conversations to have. But when you say God told me to do X or do Y, how do you argue that? Okay, an imaginary voice, said something. Come on. So that's why I think so I'm for it. I support it. Hispanic American supports it because we need everybody at the table, and every grain of sand in this thing is worth it.
Yes. I think people are really losing touch with the fact that they've heard so often recently, the last few years, this is a Christian nation. They have forgotten that it's not a Christian nation. This was born to be a secular nation. The whole point of America was getting away from the influence of government in religion.
Yeah, I understand. It's the first godless constitution ever. There's no God mentioned in there. The only time the Constitution mentions religion is negative. Because there should not be a religious test, and the government should not support one religion more than the other. That separation of church and state. There's not. It says we the people. It doesn't say by divine, providence or anything like that. Now, some people will argue that Declaration of Independence has some divinity stuff in there, and I remind people that number one is not our governing document. It's not the government. It's not the now. Second, it was the language that we had to use for the king, so he would understand what we were trying to do, because he was king by divine providence, and so the same divine providence is telling us that we need to be independent, and that we have certain rights that are I can't say the word
inalienable.
Oh, you can't say it either. Good.
Inalienable.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway,
but this country was built to have religion separate from the government, and the government has been steadily trying to bring religion into it, and specifically Christianity, which it has no place there. And that's why I started doing this. Was the last election we had, which they asked every candidate if they believed in God, and of course all of them did. And
worse. Remember, along there they asked them whether or not they believed in evolution.
Oh,
that was scary.
Yes,
and majority didn't, and proud of it.
Yes,
proud of it, and because they're pandering to the religious right. personally, I think most of them probably did. I mean,
I would hope so.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say with some people.
But the problem with the government here is that you have a country that is not being led by leaders. It's a country that is running. Congress are not leaders; they're followers. They follow the money. They follow who's going to vote for them or who they think is going to vote for them, and then they say what those people want to hear. And so, they're not leaders in that sense. They're not coming up with new ideas or anything like that. It's funny, most people hate Congress except their own senator.
Yeah.
So that's why we keep living. They say, people have the government they deserve.
Yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we've been there for a while.
We were talking about this a little bit last night. You weren't there, but a lot of these candidates who do very well regionally or in their specific states, they can't scale it up to a national election because they are so focused into pandering just the people that elect them in their region that they haven't figured out how to pander to the larger audience.
To the bigger group.
And that's true. It's like that's all they're doing. They're pandering. They're not there to do a job. They're there to see who will give them money and to pander.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I guess we got a good roadshow, though, with all these
it is a roadshow.
candidates.
It's a circus.
Yeah. So we'll see what that happens. Hopefully religion will take a backseat more than it did last time.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that the young people in this country are far more secular than the older people, and so I see that as a good thing. Hopefully it's something that will stay, and hopefully will become a little bit more like some European countries where religiosity has gone down to very low levels. So we'll see now, because we have a free market of craziness, religion, then people go and people are gullible, and they go and teach them all kinds of things and tell them, God is going to do this for you and that, and people want to believe, and that's the problem. I think it's within our DNA to want to believe and have someone do the thinking for you, because thinking is not easy, and so if you have to do all the thinking, and especially rational thinking is not natural, and so if you have to use rational thinking and and skeptical thinking, that's hard. That's a lot of work. People rather have somebody to do the thinking for them.
Yes.
And then we end up with someone doing the thinking like Trump, if you call that thinking.
That's just
Anyway, I'm always going to pick on him.
Shooting off the cuff.
Yeah.
He's a loose cannon, but he's very popular because he's very entertaining.
Well, and the only reason he is what he is because he's got his own money.
Yes.
So no one pulls his strings. He can be crazy on his own. And he knows that crazy attracts news, attracts things. So.
And that's what he's all about. He's about attracting attention.
Yeah, selling the brand.
Yes. Well, David, I really appreciate you taking time to talk with me. Anything else that you would like to plug?
So let me see. I plugged in Road to Reason, the TV show, which is Sundays at 3 p.m. On Ustream and then on YouTube. Then I plugged Hispanic American Freethinkers. All Latinos, or anyone that supports Latinos should do it, because if the Latinos go south on this, on the secular part, we're all screwed. And let me see. And I plugged in the Reason Rally 2016, best show ever. It's going to be fantastic. And so I think that's pretty much it. The only thing I'm going to mention, just to be humble enough here, and so for the record, right now Matt Dillahunty and I have been playing this chess game for some days, and well, he's whipping my ass right now, or just about to start whipping my ass in it. So I'll get him next time, but maybe I'll be able to squeeze out of this one. But he's not bad. So Matt.
And this is cerebral chess. This is not on chessboard. This is
saying
what the moves are.
Yeah. We've been doing it through texting. So we've been texting our moves for the last. I think we're on move 19. So
that's impressive just on its own stand.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's it.
I will add all the links to all these different organizations and things going on in the description below. And again, we are here at Aposticon. And this is Aposticon 8 or 7?
I lost track of the numbers. I just call it Aposticon. The Aposticon.
Yeah. And Penn and Teller are going to don't
sorry.
you wish you were here?
Yes.
Or I should say,
still have time.
Wish you would have been here, because by the time
it's going to come out,
they're going to be gone. But they'll have another one next year. And last year was Neil deGrasse Tyson, and that was fantastic. So
I got to give it to the organizers here. They bring in the right people.
Yes. It's a great event. A lot of fun, and
All
looking forward to hearing these talk.
right, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
And again, I'm Tom, your friendly neighborhood atheist, and this is No Old White Guys on Secular TV. See you later.
I was made this way.